and by being awarded the Silver Star Medal in June of 1967. Then 2 months later, again distinguishing himself, he was awarded his second Silver Star and 2 Purple Hearts. Earning that Silver Star and wounded in Arctic action, he was awarded also the 2 Purple Hearts. All of this done under tremendous heavy enemy fire, risking his own safety, personal safety. He led from the front and not from behind. Culminating his 35 years of service and many achievements, he served as a commanding general of the 3rd Army. Early this year, he was inducted, along with General Stanley McChrystal, into the Ranger Hall of Fame. His nominator was Colonel Ralph Puckett, a Ranger legend. He and his wife Susan now reside in Big Canoe. They have 3 children, 3 grandchildren. Please stand and welcome my friend and one of our local American heroes, General Stephen Arnold.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here today, and I want to thank Ray for that very generous introduction. And I want to thank all of you for being here on this very, very special day to recognize all of our veterans, to honor all of our veterans, and in today's parlance, thank them for their service. But to do that properly, I think you really have to know and understand how this day started, and then how it evolved to what it is today, and how we celebrate it as we continue. So let's go back. In your mind, in your imagination, it's now 11 November 1918, and it's 4:30 in the morning. And it's cold, not like it is right now, and you'll need a coat. And you're standing beside a train car in northern France. No ordinary car. It's Marshal Foch's personal command car, very plushly appointed, I might add. He's the commander of all Allied forces in World War I. And the delegations have been meeting there for 2 days. This will be the 3rd day of negotiations to end the war. And the Allies are there early, and they board the train, and they sit down at the conference table. The Germans arrive late, and they're nervous, and they're upset. They expected to get guidance from Berlin, as they had the previous 2 days, but no guidance came. And as soon as they sat down, the French delegation shoved the newspaper from Paris, an early morning edition, and above the fold in great big font was the headlines, "The Kaiser has abdicated. The Kaiser is no longer the head of Germany." And below the fold in the newspaper, chaos and near chaotic conditions are taking place in Germany. The German delegation knew they would get no guidance that day, and they also knew they had to come to an agreement on stopping the war. So at 0500, on 11 November 1918, their agreement was reached to stop the war. And the Germans protested to all the terms and conditions because they were so harsh that many people would say for years after, there are the seeds that start World War II. And lo and behold, it happened. But that's another story. Today we're talking about World War I ending. And they agreed to it at 5 in the morning, but they did not know what time to make it official because they had to notify all the soldiers on both sides. It had to go through all the commands. It had to get down to every soldier in the trenches, and they had to know and understand to stop the fighting. So the good news is agreement was reached. The bad news, the firing would continue for 6 more hours. And it did. Artillery fired. There was some trench warfare, but it was light that day. And there was fear in the trenches that the weather is such that phosgene gas and mustard gas would be a real problem on that day. So there was fear of that, but it did not happen. And at 11 o'clock, the guns fell silent. Even Big Bertha. Big Bertha, if you don't know, was an artillery piece that was so large that it was mounted on a train car. And it fired a projectile that weighed 2,000 pounds. I say again, it fired a Volkswagen at Paris, 2,000 pounds. But it fell silent right then and there. And 1 year later, President Wilson declared that we would celebrate this day forevermore as Armistice Day. And we would celebrate it at 11 o'clock on the 11th day of the 11th month. And that's the phrase you've heard for years and years. 11, 11, 11. And we did that. We did that for 36 years. And I remember growing up, the way we used to celebrate it in central Illinois, we didn't really have crowds big enough for a parade. But at 11 o'clock, all activity would stop. And everybody would, whatever they were doing, observe 2 minutes of silence for those soldiers who fought and some who had died in World War I. And the men all wore poppies in their lapels. And you know, our allies did that as well. In Canada, in the UK, in Australia. And if you'll see them on television today, some of the politicians in Canada and the UK, they still wear the poppy. And you'll see that. Maybe we should too. But we did that for 36 years. And then in 1954, General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower at the time, wanted to make a declaration that was, yes, to honor the World War I veterans and those who died there, but to make it more inclusive, to include those from World War II, there were millions, to include those from the Korean War that he had just ended, as a campaign promise, by the way. So he wanted to make it more inclusive, and he did that, and Congress supported it. And they changed the name from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And that's what it's become. Veterans to be recognized for their service, to be honored for their service, and to be thanked for their service. And we're still doing that today. Now, many of you, yes, you'll support the veterans in groups, in large gatherings like this, but usually we have a tendency to think of one person that you know, a family member, maybe here with you today, or gone now, or maybe a friend, or perhaps someone that you read about that was really a hero in the war, or one of the wars. And that's very normal. I have a personal choice. On Veterans Day, I always think of a guy named Ed Freeman. 50 years ago, this month, Ed Freeman was flying a helicopter over the Ia Drang Valley in Vietnam. The American unit on the ground, as many of you know, was having a real tough go at it. And they were having a horrendous fight, and they had many wounded already on the ground. The LZ, the landing zone for the medevacs, was so hot that the American commander stopped all flights coming in. He didn't want any more helicopters getting shot down. Ed Freeman was not a medevac pilot, but he listened to all this on the radios, and he landed anyway. And his helicopter got loaded with wounded soldiers that wouldn't live if they didn't get evacuated, and he took them out of there. And yes, he took some hits. His helicopter got hit, but no one was seriously wounded. And he flew away, and miraculously, those troops were taken care of in a MASH hospital. But the most miraculous thing about it is he went back and did it again. And then he went back and did it again. Each time getting shot at as he landed. Each time taking wounded soldiers out. Soldiers that wouldn't be alive or wouldn't have lived longer had they not been taken out. And he did it 13 times. That's my veteran that always comes to mind when I think of that. And he was a Medal of Honor winner. But you don't have to be a Medal of Honor winner to be honored today. We honor all veterans. We honor veterans who were career military like myself. Are there any career military out there retired? Okay, thank you for your service. And before we had all volunteer service, there were draftees and there were volunteers. And many volunteered and they are a veteran. And many got drafted. Are there any draftees out here? Look at that. Thank you, service. Thank you for your service. Okay, we got at least 2 out there. That's great. And what that amounts to is, it doesn't matter how they got in the service. They were there, and they served. And in essence, they signed a blank check. The blank check says, I'll go where I'm told to go, and I'll serve where I'm told to serve. And if I have to fight, yes, I'll fight. And if I have to risk my life, yes, I'll risk my life. And that's what our veterans are today. Those are the Americans that we should honor, and those are the honorees that we should thank for their service. Now, in closing, I want to do one more thing. We'll have a little roll call. I want everybody to stand up that was a veteran or served in World War II. And I know there's at least one lady here. Okay, anyone else from World War II? Okay, thank you very much. Special day. How about Korea? Korean War. Yes, sir. In Vietnam. Lots of Vietnam veterans here. Thank you very much. How about Desert Storm? Okay. Anyone in Somalia? Other than me? Now, in the last 10 years plus, we've had young men and women fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. And you hear a lot in the news about the 1%. Well, the true 1%, and actually the number is smaller than 1%, are those soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen serving in Vietnam and Iraq. It's a small number, and they go back, and they go back, and they've done that for 10 years. So do we have any of those veterans here today? We're honored to have you here today, and we thank you for your service. And God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.